Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Sean. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. On October 16th, China's Communist Party will open its 20th Party Congress, its most important political meeting that is held once every 5 years. About 2,300 delegates from across the country will descend on Beijing to pick members of the party's Central Committee, made up of around 200 members. The highly choreographed event will see leadership changes to bolster President Xi Jinping's authority and grant him an unprecedented third term. Analysts expect Xi to reinforce his stature as China's most powerful ruler since Mao Zedong. In the last 10 years, Xi has strengthened, centralized, and emboldened an already pervasive security apparatus, turning it into a fortress that protects him. He has built what he calls a comprehensive system designed for a world he sees as determined to thwart China, politically, economically, socially, militarily, and technologically. Each Chinese leader since Mao has had one of his personal political philosophies or ideas codified in the state constitution. Xi's political ideology was included in 2018 and was titled Xi Jinping Thought, putting him on a par with Mao. I can sum up the so-called Xi Jinping thought with one word: fear. Xi Jinping's fear was on display even before his reign began. According to New York Times report, a decade ago when US-China relations were less strained and when Xi was cementing his power, Xi spoke privately with President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden over informal private meals, and he let his guard down a little. Xi suggests that China was a target for color revolutions. It is a term used since around 2004 by worldwide media to describe various anti-regime protest movements and accompanying changes of government that took place in post-Soviet Eurasia during the early 21st century. The term has also been more widely applied to several other revolutions elsewhere, including in the Middle East, the Asia-Pacific region. Russia placed the blame on the West. The recent Arab Spring uprisings across the Middle East had reinforced Xi's concerns that China was vulnerable to public anger over corruption and inequality. Daniel Russell is a former senior American diplomat who accompanied Mr. Biden to China in 2011. He said, Xi couldn't have been more forthright that China is beset by malevolent forces and internally prey to centrifugal forces. Ryan Hess was the National Security Council Director for China when Mr. Xi later visited the White House. He said, Xi would talk all the time about color revolutions. That's clearly a sort of front-of-mind issue for him. Such fears have come to define the era of Mr. Xi. Over the past decade, he has pursued an all-encompassing drive to expand the very meaning of national security in China, bolstering the party's control on all fronts against any perceived threats abroad and could pounce on weakness at home. Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to support Taiwan against Beijing is likely to reconfirm his worldview that the United States and its allies are ready to exploit any potential weakness, and that China must always show steely vigilance. Since Pelosi's visit, she has mobilized the military off the coast of Taiwan, sending the warning that China wants to curtail America's backing for Taiwan. In order to ensure Chinese Communist Party and his own safety, Xi has undergone a long process of building a fortress China. In other words, re-engineering China's economy so it can run on internal energies and, if the need arises, withstand a military conflict. China's self-efficiency drive has been building for a number of years, but has been accelerated since Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the subsequent Western sanctions on Moscow. The upcoming party congress will likely to reaffirm and accelerate the pace of several such developments. The Fortress China strategy has several parts and, if successful, will take several more years to realize. The essential constituent parts are technology, energy, food, and finance. In technology, the aim is to spur domestic innovation and localize strategic aspects of the supply chain. In energy, the objective is to boost the development of renewables and reduce reliance on seaborne oil and gas. In food, the path to greater self-reliance includes revitalizing the local seed industry. In finance, the imperative is to counter the potential weaponization of the US dollar. Such changes represent a clear challenge for many multinational companies, especially those who derive the lion's share of their global growth from China's market. This month, Xi Jinping gave a speech about the urgent need for breakthroughs in domestic technology to outcompete the West and bolster national security. Under Xi, China is seeking to become a state-led and self-sufficient techno-superpower that will no longer rely so much on the West. The development of core technologies was not something that could be left up to the free market, but had to be led by China's government. The Chinese Central TV broadcast CCTV quoted Xi as saying, "It is necessary to strengthen the centralized and unified leadership of the Central Committee and establish an authoritative decision-making command system." According to Damien Ma, managing director of the US think tank Macro Polo, Xi appears set to pack the new Central Committee with technocrats rather than career bureaucrats. This is indicative of how important that Xi attaches core technology to his agenda. These tech-savvy officials will then be responsible for overseeing what amounts to a huge gamble. China is pouring unprecedented resources into fostering technological self-reliance, especially in strategic industries such as semiconductors. Beijing sure hope that such funding will lead to innovation and import substitution. In total, well over $150 billion has been pledged to spur progress in semiconductors. A report last year by Semiconductor Industry Association, a grouping of US chip makers, found that $39 billion has already been invested by China's National Integrated Circuits Fund, largely in new manufacturing projects. In addition, more than 15 local governments have announced funds worth a total of $25 billion dedicated to the support of Chinese semiconductor companies. A further $50 billion has been earmarked in the form of government grants, equity investments, and low-interest loans. By comparison, the US planned to dispense $50 billion total to support its own domestic semiconductor industry. It looks much more modest. Semiconductors are considered the Achilles heel of China's industry. In 2020, it imported a whopping $378 billion of semiconductors. 95% of installed indigenous Chinese capacity is from imports. Nevertheless, some notable breakthroughs have occurred. It emerged this summer that SMIC, one of China's leading chip makers, has successfully made a 7-nanometer chip, putting it just 1 or 2 generations behind industry leaders such as TSMC in Taiwan and Samsung in South Korea. Several analysts, however, say that despite such progress and the huge funds that China has dedicated to the chip industry, goals of full semiconductor self-reliance are delusional. The industry is so complex and interconnected that no country can stand alone. Dan Wang is the technology analyst for Gavaco Dragonomics based in Shanghai. He said, self-sufficiency is a fantasy for any country, even ones as large as the US or China, when it comes to chips. It is not only delusional by pouring money in exchange for technology self-sufficient, its implementation is also flawed. I will touch base on China's version of Innovation Incubator Little Giants program, plus Xi's Fortress China components of food, energy, and finance. Stay tuned, and I will see you soon. Until then, be well.